TCM podcast, all about Chinese medicine. Welcome to a new episode at Traditional Chinese Medicine TCM podcast. Today I'm going to talk about the Interstitium in traditional Chinese medicine. We know it also by the name of San Jiao, or the triple heater. The very important topic it is based on science, in fact, and I would like to point several facts, maybe new for you or even the professional who listen to me, and I hope you are going to enjoy. They're actually the beginning. I would like to point a bit about fascia, and we all know about fascia, that basically it's from the Latin band. It's a generic term for macroscopic membranous bodily structures. And we know that fascia are passive structures that transmit mechanical tension generated by muscular activities or external forces throughout the body. An important function of muscle fascia is to reduce friction of muscular force. And in doing so, fascia provide a supportive and movable wrapping for nerves and blood vessels as they pass through and between muscles. Facial tissues are frequently innervated by sensory nerve endings. And facial tissues, particularly those with tendinous and aponeurotic properties, are also able to store and release elastic potential energy. And in generally speaking, fascia is a thin membrane that connects all parts of the body. It helps body to operate in space, which allows complex movements. It surrounds our organs and holds them in place by suspending them from the spine. And to be able to communicate effectively across the body tissue, fascia must be smooth and free. If it's not smooth, the results will be pain and poor range of motion. So, as I mentioned, fascia is a band or sheet of connective tissue, which is basically made of collagen, and it is beneath the skin that attaches, stabilizes, and encloses, separates muscles and other internal organs along our body, like ligaments, aponeurosis, and tendons. Fascia is made up of closely packed bundles of collagen fibers, and facial lines have some overlap with the meridians of acupuncture, but the two are not equivalent. These lines of pull affect the structure and function of the body. Through injury or compensations, unique strains and connections may start to redefine these lines. In other words, our body reshapes itself depending on the forces it's repeatedly subject to. For example, in bones, osteoblast cells fortify bone along lines of mechanical stress. When the fascia is stressed, fibroblasts produce collagen to create stronger connective tissue. And when the continuity of our facial system breaks down, we suffer injury, of course pain and tightness. So fascia is the reason we are so uniquely humanly shaped, and it's the reason we have a lot of muscles in the same space, yet the muscles are able to slide past each other and have independent function. Along the time, as we lose flexibility and the ability of tissue to slide and glide, the viscosity of fascia changes from supple running fluid to honey, slowly goes to glue, and in the end to dry strands. Therefore, our bodies need the movements to maintain optimal metabolism and circulation to the tissues. Fascia becomes important clinically when it loses stiffness, becomes too stiff, or it has decreased shearing ability. When inflammation or trauma causes fibrosis and adhesions, facial tissue fails to differentiate the adjacent structures effectively. This can happen after surgery, where the fascia has been incised and healing includes a scar that traverses the surrounding structures. Activities like yoga or qigong, which stretch, lengthen, and rhythmically pump and release the myofascial chains, not only help to prevent painful buildup of metabolic waste and stagnation of fluids, salts, etc. But they also encourage regulation of the nervous system, immune system, endocrine system, of course cardiovascular and digestive system, through healthy cellular metabolism and circulation. Well, long introduction to the fascia indeed, but I believe it is important to understand the real structure and the function of the fascia before actually I go to interstitium, which basically represents a specific dense wall of collagen organizing network of fluid-filled spaces in connective tissues all over the body, including below the skin surface, lining the digestive tract, lungs and the urinary systems, and of course surrounding muscles. The spaces of the interstitium are filled with hyaluronic acid, which has a high capacity to hold water, creating a gel. A network of dense connective tissues and fluid-filled compartments called interstitium, in fact, is a full-fledged organ, and it is a group of tissues with a unique structure performing a specialized task, like the heart or the liver. The human body is about 60% water. About 2/3 of that water is found inside cells, but the other third, or about 20%, is outside cells and is known as interstitial fluid, which is basically a Latin word combining inter, which means between, actually, or between, and sistere, or to place, literally, between the other places. The interstitium is a contiguous fluid-filled space existing between a structural barrier, such as cell membrane or the skin, and internal structures, such as an organ, including muscles and the circulatory system. The fluid in this space is called interstitial fluid, comprises water and solids, and drains into the lymph system. The interstitial compartment is composed of connective and supporting tissues within the body called the extracellular matrix that are situated outside the blood and the lymphatic vessel and the parenchyma of organs. These fluid-filled spaces were discovered in connective tissues all over the body, and the tissues contains interconnected fluid-filled spaces that are supported by thick collagen bundles. So the interstitial fluid is we can say like it's a reservoir and transportation system for nutrients and solutes distributing among organs, cells and capillaries. Fluid flowing across the capillary walls must cross the interstitial spaces between parenchymal cells to gain access to the lymphatic vasculature for subsequent return to the vascular system. Interstitial flow may influence the formation of new lymphatic vessels in regenerating tissues. The total healthy fluid volume of the interstitium is about 20% of the body weight, but this space is dynamic and may change in volume and composition during immune responses and in conditions such as cancer and specifically within the interstitium of tumors. The amount of interstitial fluid varies from about 50% of the tissue weight in skin to about 10% in skeletal muscles. In addition to cushioning, the interstitium may have another important job. While it was known that interstitial fluid is a major source of lymph fluid, which carries immune cells throughout the body, cancers such as melanoma can spread via the interstitium. Interstitium may become visible on the radiographs if it is distended by space-occupying lesions, for example blood edema, pus tumor, or thickened in response to such disorders as connective tissue disorders. In fact, recent investigations have revealed that the interstitial space plays an active role in addition to the kidney in the regulation of salt and water balance in the body, including blood pressure. So this is a story about the interstitium. I already spoke a bit about the fascia and a bit physiologically about interstitium. But what about traditional Chinese medicine and the interstitium is that in TCM, existence of fascia and interstitium has been known for thousands of years, and Chinese call it San Jiao and consider it an organ. In English, it is translated as triple burner. In traditional Chinese medicine, triple burner is responsible for various functions, including dividing the body cavity into different compartments and properly distributing fluid throughout the body. The triple burner is responsible for the maintenance of the ditches, and it controls all water in the body. That is the general idea about triple heater. We can say that it is the sum of systemic connective tissues, which wraps around and supports the various body tissues. TCM classifies triple heater into upper, middle, and lower parts according to their functions. So, naturally, the upper part completes the function of the chest viscera, including, of course, the heart, lungs. The middle part would complete the visceral functions of the abdomen above the umbilicus, including the stomach, spleen, liver, gallbladder, pancreas, and small intestine. And the lower part completes the visceral function of the abdomen and pelvic cavity under the umbilicus, including kidney and bladder. So, they also believe that triple burner is membranous shaped, and it is one of the 6 full viscera of the human body, and it is one of the 12 meridians. Triple burner meridian is both a meridian and a triple burner membrane system, at least from my point of view. Within the regard of modern physiology and traditional Chinese medicine, there is a recent discovery which proves ancient Chinese knowledge of physiology. During 2018, researchers found a new link between the lung and the intestines through type 2 innate lymphoid cells, shorter named ILC2. So these lymphoid cells, to name them again, ILC2, derive from a common lymphoid progenitor and belong to the lymphoid lineage. Researchers have demonstrated that these lymphoid cells can be recruited from the gut to the lung and other organs in response to inflammatory signaling. These lymph cells, gut-lung axis actually, becomes vital for understanding the link between disturbances in the intestinal microbiota and lung diseases, such as asthma and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Increasing evidence shows an extraordinarily intimate relationship between the gastrointestinal tract and the respiratory tract. Studies demonstrated that changes in microbial composition and functions in the respiratory tract and the gut have been linked to alterations in immune responses and to disease development in the lungs. These studies prove that exacerbations of chronic gut and lung diseases share key conceptual features with the disorders and dysregulation of the microbial ecosystem. So, the lung and the large intestines have an interior-exterior connection, which is a basic, major traditional Chinese medicine foundation. These two organs are functionally interconnected in TCM physiology, which implies that lung diseases can be treated from the large intestine perspective, and that large intestine diseases can be treated from the lung perspective. So the gut-lung axis discovered in this research provides new evidence to back up this ancient principle of TCM medical practice. Platelets are pieces of cytoplasm that are derived from the megakaryocytes of the bone marrow. They are critical to hematological functions such as hemostasis, thrombosis, and inflammatory responses. Medical science has long held that megakaryocytes and therefore platelet production are normally centered exclusively in the bone marrow. A recent study provides evidence that the lung is involved to a large degree in platelet biogenesis. The study describes a distinct mechanism of proplatelet release from intravascular megakaryocytes of extrapulmonary origin in the lung microcirculation. Careful analysis of the resulting data revealed that the lung is also a primary site for platelet production. In fact, lung megakaryocytes can completely reconstitute platelet counts in the blood of mice with thrombocytopenia. They discovered that many megakaryocytes circulate through the lungs, where they dynamically release platelets. These platelet-releasing megakaryocytes are of extrapulmonary origin, such as the bone marrow, where large megakaryocytes were observed migrating out of the bone marrow. Furthermore, the researchers discovered that the lungs' contribution to platelet biogenesis is substantial, with approximately 50% of total platelet production, as well as identified populations of mature and immature megakaryocytes along with hematopoietic progenitors that resides in the extravascular spaces of the lung. When there is a disease condition of thrombocytopenia and relative stem cell deficiency in the bone marrow, these progenitors can migrate out of the lung, repopulate the bone marrow, completely reconstitute blood platelet counts, and contribute to multiple hematopoietic lineages. These new discoveries, citing the lungs as a primary site of terminal platelet production and an organ of hematopoiesis, have implication for the treatment of disorders such as lung inflammation and other inflammatory conditions, bleeding and thrombotic disorders, and transplantation. This study has a resonance with the traditional understanding of lung dynamics in TCM. In traditional Chinese medicine theory, the fluid generated from food digestion in the spleen and stomach is supplied to the lung collaterals, where the fluid and clear qi are combined and transformed into blood. Lungs control all the body's collaterals and qi. The qi dynamic and blood circulation depend on the dissemination and regulation of lung qi. Since qi both generates and controls blood, it is commonly used treatment strategy in TCM to generate and control blood by tonifying qi. It seems that traditional Chinese medicine is becoming more relevant by adopting principles of modern medicine, while modern medicine is systematically validating TCM principles. Within regards of acupuncture meridian system and the interstitium, acupuncture meridians are believed to form a network throughout the body, connecting peripheral tissue to each other, and to central viscera. Interstitial connective tissues also fits this description. Interstitial loose connective tissue constitutes a continuous network enveloping all limb muscles, bones, and tendons, extending into connective tissue planes of pelvic and shoulder girdles, abdominal and chest walls, neck, and head. This tissue network is also continuous with more specialized connective tissues such as periosteum, peromusium, perineum, pleura, peritoneum, and meninges. A form of signaling might be mechanical, bioelectrical, biochemical, transmitted through interstitial connective tissue, therefore may have potentially powerful integrative functions. Many factors in our daily life, including poor postural habits, stress-induced muscular tension, limited movement, injury, and dehydration, can cause so-called Velcro-like adhesion to form within the fascia, gluing muscles together and restricting their ability to perform their individual functions. Using proprietary treatment approach, first step is to identify the pattern of the focal adhesions where the fascia has collapsed in and is stuck together. After identification of these patterns, might be applied various treatment methods like deep tissue restoration, manual therapy, and the use of acupuncture or dry needling with aim to cause chemical reactions in the cell, and of course to allow the interstitium and its compartments to spring back to life, getting your tissues to glide effortlessly over one another as they are meant to be. In acupuncture, the connective tissue is the link between the needle and the sensory nerve endings, which is the signal that gets transmitted to the brain. The needle is a mechanical cue that stimulates chemical reactions, which of course is impacting the musculoskeletal, nervous, and immune system through the tissue. Cells in the connective tissue, particularly fibroblasts, respond when you manipulate the needle. Researchers show that fibroblasts change shape, which is critical for healing. When muscle or tissue is injured or strained, as a result happens decrease of oxygen, there is an accumulation of calcium, congealed fluids, poorly circulating substances of blood, lymph, watery substance in the fascia that are creating dysfunction in the muscle cells, leading to chronic spasm and, of course, pain. This persistent stress of the muscles and the connective tissues leads to abnormal overstimulation to the nerves in the areas. Acupuncture is excellent at breaking up the physical stiffness and encouraging focused increase of blood, lymph, and fluid circulation, flushing out calcium, inflammatory compounds, and other metabolic waste. Meanwhile, new oxygen, nutrient-rich blood, and fluids rush back in. We are using acupuncture to turn off nerves of a kind that are overstimulated or turn on nerves and related muscles that have been restricted and under-utilized. We know from researches that into the mechanism of acupuncture that stimulation of the peripheral nervous system causes changes in the central nervous system to regulate pain signals, along with many other regulatory actions, simply by gently stimulating the complex interwoven layers of nervous, vascular, myofascial, and lymphatic tissues. There is some subject I would like to point out. It's called tensegrity. Tensegrity is like ligaments, aponeurosis, and tendons. Fascia is made up closely packed bundles of collagen fibers, oriented in a wavy pattern parallel to the direction of pull. We know the fascia is consequently flexible. This architectural structure is based on the relationship between tension and compression, which they work in complementary forces. So there is a guy called Buckminster Fuller who designed the floating tensegrity model in the 1960s to help explain this concept. Tensegrity systems share the burden of absorbing force so that any one part will influence the whole. Anyway, tensegrity was firstly invented by Soviet scientist Karl Johansson in 1921, just for the record. But biotensegrity is a term coined by Stefan Levin, I believe, which is an extended theoretical application of tensegrity principle to biological structures. Biological structures such as muscles, bones, fascia, ligaments, and tendons are made strongly by the unison of tensioned and compressed parts. The body is at least responding like a tensegrity structure, and many of us believe that it is operating as tensegrity structure. Tensegrity is the most efficient use of materials to enclose a volume in a highly adaptable manner. All structures balance tension with compression. In a way, the yin and yang of the biomechanics. Facial continuity suggests that the myofascia acts like adjustable tensegrity around the skeleton, which is a continuous inward pulling tensional network like the elastics, with the bones acting like the struts in a tensegrity model, pushing out against the restricting rubber bands. Bones represent compression struts, and fascia are myofascia as the surrounding and investing tension members. Tensegrity mathematics, however, work of 60% angles, 60-degree angles, really releasing that triangles are the only universally stable structures, while squares and other polygons allow mobility. There is a lot of data that's being transmitted through fascia. It's like if you had a towed suspension cable, tap one end and the vibration will travel to the other. Every time a force is applied to the body, it is transmitted through this web to be processed. For example, Retinaculum is used to describe the fascia of the wrist, and it is involved in the dreaded carpal tunnel syndrome or aponeurotic tissue, which can be found over the low back and is associated with that achy back pain of yours. It's all ways of classifying the fascia. It's in these tissues where a lot of free nerve endings exist that are constantly monitoring the body, where, for example, the wrist is in relation to the elbow, how one muscle is contracting so the opposing muscle can relax for things to move smoothly. The interstitium could change the way we observe many functions within the body, and it's also the space where the tip of the needle goes during acupuncture, which might be one of the reasons why acupuncture is effective. Having said that, I will conclude the story with the facia, interstitium, the triple heater or San Jiao, and tensegrity model, that our knowledge of the body it's very limited, and I hope that the future holds more knowledge and understanding about the basic structures and the functions of the many layers of the body, and hope to believe that we progress the understanding of mitochondrial medicine, which I'm going dearly to follow in these very podcasts, in relations, of course, with the traditional Chinese medicine. And it's good to have such a good opportunity to learn more. Having said that, until the next time, with light and love. Hear you next time. TCM Podcast, all about Chinese medicine.